Welcome to the MVP Show. In this podcast series, I hope to go beneath the surface and understand the motivations, contributions in life of an MVP and the role they play in the community to enable you, the listener, to make an informed choice about what's involved in joining this worldwide family. The format for the show is that of a fireside chat. For full show notes, please visit nz365guide.com/29. Now, on with the show.
There's a knife in my heart and a storm in my head.
Well, everyone, I'm here with Matt Witteman. Matt, why don't you go ahead and tell us a bit about yourself?
Boy, where do I start? What do you want to know about me?
It's a long career, mate. Tell us about your family. Tell us about your career up to this point, and just a bit of background for people that have never heard of you.
Well, okay. For those 2 or 3 people out there, I currently live in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I work for a company called Click Dimensions, which is a marketing automation software ISV for Microsoft Dynamics. And I have been working with Microsoft Dynamics since just about the first version that came out at the end of 2003, beginning of 2004. And I got into it in a weird way. My background, I went to school for art history of all things.
Wow, didn't know that. See, there's something new.
Against my father's advice, but it all worked out. But during that, I got into graphic design, and this is pre-internet stuff too. Got into web design when the internet came out in the 90s. But fast forward to the early 2000s, and I was doing marketing technologies for small businesses, working with a friend of mine, and Microsoft came out with their CRM, and we're like, I have to take a look at this. It's their first fully .NET web technology business application, even though it was all on premise at the time. And I never looked back from there.
Sounds very similar to my path, and probably a lot of the longer term MVPs.
Yeah, I don't think anybody set out, very few people set out to say, I'd like a career in this. But it's fed my family for all these years. I've got my lovely wife, Elizabeth, of almost be 23 years, 2 kids. And as far as my kids know, this is just what all dad's ever done. So
Wow. So how old are your kids?
19 and 15.
Excellent. And I see that your son's done a bit of travel already around the world, and your daughter's into horse riding.
Yes. So, Mark, with your travel, have you seen this app called BEEN? B-E-E-N? It's a B-E-E-N.
Spell that again?
It's the only purpose of it is it's a map of the world, and you check off the countries you've been to.
Oh, awesome.
Or like in the States, you can check off which states you've been to and which provinces in Canada and so forth. And so my kids have always had this app. We've traveled a fair amount bringing them up, but with my son taking his gap year, he surpassed me in the number of countries, and he's 19 years old.
Wow. It's downloading it's right awesome.
Now. Yeah, I can't imagine. You're going to have, the whole map will be colored in for you.
Oh, yeah. It'll be interesting. I think I'm up to 36 odd countries now. Cool. That's so cool. So I noticed on your Twitter handle, it's Matt. Is it NC on the end of it? So what does NC stand for?
North Carolina.
So tell us about that place. What's it known for? What's the standout things of North Carolina?
Well, so first about my Twitter handle, the interesting thing, I was an early adopter. Twitter really started getting some traction in 2007 or so, and I set up a Twitter account, and the handle Matt had already been taken, and then Matt 123 or whatever had already been taken, but Matt NC hadn't. So I'm like, all right, I'm taking that one because I live in North Carolina. But
nice.
North Carolina is it's a beautiful state. Where I live in Charlotte it's a few hours from the beach and a few hours from the mountains, and so that's everybody says Charlotte's ideal because you're so close to the beach and the mountains. But the sad fact is that nobody ever goes to the beach or the mountains frequently enough. So I'd rather live at one or the other, but it is a beautiful state.
So are your mountains tall enough you got snow on them, and then you could you ski in one day and be at the beach one day? in the same day?
Yeah, you could. The mountains, they don't have snow year round. They're not that tall. But during the winter, yeah, there's some skiable mountains in North Carolina. A lot of places that have to end up making some artificial snow. But yeah, you could
potentially do a day trip just to go to two extremes, even though the sea will probably be freezing cold.
Yeah. If you're skiing, then the beach is going to be cold too.
So tell me, how did you get to be where you are specifically now? What was that little transition point, if you like, that switched you from your web design, that type of thing, to becoming a dynamics type person? What was it? What was the tipping point?
I'll tell you exactly what the tipping point was for me. So at the time I'm working with small businesses. This is back in the days. The friend I was working for, we did installations of small business server.
Yeah, no way. That's incredible. So, as I've just been chatting with Larry Lentz, and he was just saying it's exactly how he got into the game from SMB. Yeah.
I mean, you know what? If there was a better product to learn a broad set of technologies, I don't know what it was.
Yeah, so true.
I learned, because we're setting up small business server, we could set up a website because it had IIS on it. So I learned IIS, and I learned web development in the Windows world. And it had SQL Server. So I learned, SQL Server and databases. And it had Exchange on it. So I learned Exchange and email. And then when Microsoft came out with their customer relationship management product, it leveraged all those things. And it's like, oh, it's a natural fit for the skills I've learned. But at the same time, we're still doing, our main business was small business server setup and websites and some marketing around that. But the tipping point was one of the first implementations I did. We had a customer that was a real estate developer, and they would buy up land up in the mountains here in North Carolina, and they would parcel it out and get it developed. And so I converted, they had been using ACT. And they had a really big telesales operation, and using ACT to support all of that. And I converted them from ACT over to Microsoft CRM 1.2, and it was really successful. And the fun thing about it was, at the time, very few companies were even using Microsoft CRM, and even fewer were converting over from something else like ACT. So Microsoft was looking for stories about conversions from competitive, at the time, ACT wouldn't even compete now, but at the time, a competitive product. And so I wrote up the case study and submitted it to Microsoft, and actually won a $5,000 check from Microsoft. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was like, whoa, there's real money in this. I'm like, all right, that's it. I'm not going back. What other award can I win, with this work? So that was it. That was the tipping point.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So over the years, you obviously got awarded your MVP, probably over 12 years ago now, one of the most longest standing MVPs. What was the process, or how did you become an MVP at that point?
So honestly, I'm not sure I was even aware of the MVP program. I was blogging a lot, and really I started blogging because every time I learned something about this crazy technology, I wanted to have a place where I knew I could always go back and find that little bit that I learned. So let me start a blog, and I'll just, hey, I learned how to do X, and I'll put it up there. And people started reading it. A couple of folks in particular at the time, John O'Donnell was one, and he's at Microsoft now. Matt Parks, these are a couple of the folks that have been in the Microsoft CRM world for years. And at the time, who was there? Somebody else. At the time, to become an MVP, you had to be nominated by somebody at Microsoft or by an existing MVP. And I think there were 5-6 MVPs for CRM at the time. And so I got this letter, hey, you've been nominated, and congratulations, you won.
Wow. And
I was like, oh, really? That's cool. And those names, I knew those names because the community was so small. I'm sure I read something that John O'Donnell did and emailed him and said, hey, how do I do that, in my implementation, So that was it. And to me, it was amazing, to be able to go out then to the summit out, and at the time they had it in downtown Seattle. Microsoft rolled out the red carpet across the whole town.
It was a big deal, eh?
I brought my wife with me. It was a big deal, yeah. And it was I still have the perspective, Microsoft doesn't have to do the MVP program. They don't have to do any, and they don't have to talk to us. The product team there, they can just happily chug along. They can talk to customers and partners and whatever. But to me, it's all gravy that they have an MVP program and they engage with us and they want to know what we think. So yeah, once I got the first one, then all of a sudden you feel like this incentive, like, oh, I want to get this again. I want to, it's really smart program because it really incentivizes the behavior, which they want is, hey, I'm posting on forums and helping people and I'm writing blogs, and it's all stuff then they don't have to do. It helps deflect support cases for them. It helps flesh out documentation for them to have an active community. They get it for the small investment of, making somebody an MVP.
It is an interesting program. It's obviously changed a bit over the years. If you look across your time as an MVP, what key contributions that you've made kind of stand out in your mind? So I'm not interested in what you're doing, month to month, that type of thing, but what are some key contributions that stand out in your mind?
Well, I mean, there's the blog, and I wrote a 800-page book at one time, and things like that were definitely things that got my name out there and got information out to people. So from the community standpoint, those were always really key, and that opened up opportunities for me to, go speak at things, so convergence and stuff like that. But I'll tell you, the last several years, especially the opportunity to give feedback to the product team and at Microsoft, to me, that's the most key thing. Like, I think I used to approach a lot of my community or the contributions as an MVP were probably more focused from the end user standpoint or the partner standpoint. And like, here's a problem. I'm a partner. I'm implementing CRM. I ran into a problem. Oh, I figured out how to fix it or how to, build around it or whatever. And so I could share that with people. But the last several years, I've been able to take a lot of the experience I've had and actually have direct input with a lot of the product managers at Microsoft. And they listen and they incorporate it. And they're curious. They want to know. Hey, you have time to, you said something about X. Do you have time to dig into that a little bit deeper? So that to me is, I think Microsoft appreciates it. I know I appreciate the opportunity.
So you mentioned there something about a little book, and that little book was the Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2011 Administration Bible. And I just logged into Amazon and I see that I purchased this on January the 31st, 2012, it tells me. And so obviously,
so you waited a year. It came out in January 2011.
I know, but just think that, I probably paid for one of the shingles on your roof with all the commissions you made off that, or the royalties you made off that book. But yeah, this was a big book at the time. I remember it was kind of the go-to book. There was a step-by-step book out there at the time as well, which kind of gave you a bit more. There's a bit more, if you like, the soft, why CRM at the start. But this book was it was a door stopper in size. It was a mammoth book. Did you find that this kind of, has this opened doors for you around the world? I doubt you kind of paid your mortgage off with it, but tell us a bit about that. Yeah,
it's like a 12-pound business card. And it's funny. It's now 7 years old, and who's using CRM 2011? Actually, you'd be surprised how many businesses are still using CRM 2011. But yeah, actually, I was in Melbourne, Australia in February, and I was conducting an advanced class for Click Dimensions, and one of the attendees was like, "Oh my gosh, Matt Witteman, I've had your book sitting on my desk for years." I was like, okay, wow. It's definitely opened doors. It's the crazy thing, the story behind the book. I don't know if you're interested in that at all. So I don't know if you ever heard of John Strowman.
No.
So I don't know if he was ever an MVP, and he was at Microsoft at one time. Anyway, he was very active in the Microsoft CRM community for a number of years. You come across his name in 2008, 2009, 2010. And so actually he was the first person that Wiley, the publisher, had approached.
Okay.
And so I think you can find somewhere on Amazon that his name is still there somewhere because the publisher went and said, okay, this is going to be John Strauman. And I don't know what the circumstances were. Something happened. And he said, hey, you know what? I'm not going to be able to do this, but Matt Witteman is somebody you should talk to. And he shot me a note and said, hey, you interested in this? And so Wiley called me, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'll take this. So, and when I turned 30, one of my goals, I made a list of things I wanted to accomplish by the time I was 40. And one of them was to be a published author. And at the time I was 30, I thought I was going to write, I was going to be Jack Kerouac or something. But that didn't pan out. But lo and behold, I had this opportunity. And then I invited a guy who owned the firm that I worked at the time to co-author with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's definitely opened doors, and it's the kind of thing. Back when I used to run a CRM consulting practice, if we were in a competitive situation against another consultant, that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
You just walked in and were like, oh, you're the guy, you wrote the book about this software we're implementing right now.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Oh, that's so cool. So tell me about, you just mentioned there another company that you owned, and I take it that's still in existence. In fact, I saw that it's still linked on your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I didn't. No, I wasn't an owner. I worked for the owner. I had various different roles there, but this was.
What's the name of the company?
So it's today it's called C5 Insight, and at the time when I joined, it was Customer Connect, and I may have been the first full-time employee. I think Jeff had a couple of folks that worked kind of on contract basis, and so we were a real small shop, and just built that up over the course of several years to a pretty decent practice. We merged with a SharePoint practice as well. So it's still a going concern, I'm glad to say.
Wow, yeah. That's so then how did you get involved with John Gravely?
Well, so John Gravely is another one of those legendary names in the Dynamics, in the Microsoft CRM world, So this again goes back to one of my very first. This may have actually been my first implementation of Microsoft CRM back in 2004. And, you immediately run into these weird, CRM 1.2, it's you all sorts of gaps in the product, all sorts of things like, why does it do it this way and not that way? And, how do we get this done? And John Gravely, he also wrote a book about Microsoft CRM. I think his was the first book. Somehow he had a book out like when Microsoft CRM 1.0 came out. I don't know.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So my very first implementation, I reached out to him and said, hey, you're like the only name I can find. And can you tell me, why does it do X? And he was so gracious. I remember sitting with my customer at the time in their office. I think John did at least 2 phone calls, like 30, 45 minutes, where he just got on and answered all of our questions. And me and my customer learned together a lot of these things from John. And so that, I owed him after that. And he didn't charge us nothing. He's just gracious with his time and his knowledge. So I always tracked what he was doing. And of course, he started C360. And so every implementation of CRM I did after that had some component of C360, some add-on that they made to fill a gap in the product. Scanned a bunch of times, brought tons of value to my customers. And then when he started Click Dimensions, so I was running this CRM practice, this small team of consultants, and I said, hey, we need to look at this. And so we got everybody in a conference room, and John gave us a demo, and it knocked all of our socks off. We're like, wow. This is exactly what everybody who wants CRM actually wants, I
remember the first demo he gave me.
Yeah. He was a great, Yeah. So then it was like, okay, game on, and at the time Click Dimensions was just a handful of people. And I saw he put a job posting out. He actually put a job posting out for a support manager. And I called him. I said, I don't know if, I can do technical support. I can be a support manager, but whatever it is, I want to come work with you.
Wow, that's so cool.
So he gave me, instead of support manager, he gave me the glorious title of chief customer officer.
Nice.
Which, in like a 10-person company, that was a big title. Yeah.
That's cool. I just did a quick look up, and the book was called Special Edition Using Microsoft CRM, and it was published in, let me see here, the August the 17th, 2003.
Yeah.
And it was the only Microsoft CRM book you need, is what was on the cover, but it looks like it was the only one that ever existed.
Yeah, I think 1.0 must have just come out, and 1.2 followed
1.2,
just like 4 months later. So I don't know how he, he's a smart guy. He figured that out.
He's a smart guy.
He got into that technology. Talk about early adopter.
Yeah, that's amazing. So listen, the next, I have another question for you, and I should have probably pre-prepped you for this. So seriously though, what business application MVP do you respect the most, and why? And it doesn't need to be necessarily an MVP that's current, but it can be over your time of being in the program. Who would you esteem from that perspective?
Wow, there are so many. That's tough. There are, on the one hand, gee, that's really tough. If I say one name, I'm going to be leaving 5 other names out. But like Tanguy, to respect Tanguy Tuzar, what he's done and helping every single person who works with Microsoft CRM by building the XRM toolbox.
Yeah.
Everybody loves Tanguy and the XRM toolbox. So that's too easy.
But he is a legend.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, Mark, if I'm not kissing up too much, you get huge props for your passion, and your, not just your passion, your energy too. So
that's what I meant to pre-prep you to say. You can't mention me.
Yeah.
I wasn't fishing.
No, absolutely. But no, that's the MVP community. Man, I'm just always amazed at how smart it's possible to be, because when we get together with the other MVPs, I always feel like, I'm the low intellect in a room.
I feel like we just don't have enough time to have a chat like this. That's not just what's kind of current and what we're talking about, rather than, what was involved in getting here and stuff. So a couple of random things here I've got, I'm picking out here. Who do you think of when you think of the word punchable?
Oh, man, you've been working on your interview questions, huh? That's good. Oh, boy, I could get myself into a lot of trouble on that one there.
You don't have to give the last name.
Yeah. Is this on a personal scale?
Anybody, man. What was the first word that popped into your mind?
Yeah. Well, maybe not the first one, but I'm going to pass on that question. There's just too many. I'm going to get myself into trouble.
Of anybody I thought would answer that question, I thought you would have answered it, but I'll let you pass.
Yeah. There's there are some easy targets. Mark Benioff, like just his constant, bloviating about how awesome he is and how awesome Salesforce is. But that's not, I don't think I would punch him. I just ignore him.
What do people never ask you but you wish they did?
Oh, wow. And nobody ever asks me, but I wish they did, is, how do I continue to look so good and so young?
That's true. That's true, right?
Are you surprised that nobody ever asks me that? I would think it'd just be the obvious question when you meet me.
Yeah. But I knew the answer to that. So I didn't need to ask the question. Yeah. What would you advise your younger self?
Boy, what would I advise my younger self? I would have a ton of advice to give my younger self. Drink less, get more sleep. Of course, this is the thing. As you get older, right? And you look back and say, geez, I used to work 80-hour weeks all the time, especially when my kids were young. I think I found ways to balance and spend time with my kids. But yeah, you look back and you say, yeah, there were times where it was necessary just to put bread on the table, and there are times it was necessary to advance your career or advance the company. But yeah, life is too short.
I agree.
But you know what? My younger self wouldn't listen to that.
No.
So it would be fruitless.
And I also find that your younger self is kind of, you are where you are now because of the product of, those things that you did that might have been crazy and stuff like that, but it's all kind of made you, got you to this point in life. So it's been great having this chat with you. If people want to find you online, should they go to your ICU blog or where?
No, oh my gosh. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. I haven't written a blog post on there in
2012 is your
years.
last one? Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, no, actually, LinkedIn is good. I started trying to get a little bit, I've written a couple articles recently on LinkedIn. So that's a good good place to find me.
LinkedIn's definitely becoming a platform, right, to
I'll tell you,
publish on more and more these days, it seems.
Yeah, but I'll tell you, I have a pet peeve. Don't connect with me on LinkedIn unless we have some other connection. Like we've worked together with the same customer, we've emailed about the same customer, called, or we met at a conference. Because I think LinkedIn, you should be linked in with people that you actually have some network with, not just because you found their name on LinkedIn. So that being said,
so all you people out there that want to connect with Matt, and you can say, "Hey, I listened to you on the podcast." There you go, you're in. Is that right?
Yeah, or you can go to Twitter and follow me on Twitter, and then
awesome.
Yeah. But I'll try. I'm not trying to be a snob about it or anything, but we should.
You should have a connection. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave feedback on your favorite podcast app. For show notes, you can go to nz365guy.com/29.